only way less protein and way more mayonnaise. Energy, energy, energy. Continue this for another week or two. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're curious on why I ate 200 grams of fat per day and what my results were, then stay tuned. My name is Sarah, otherwise known as Sarah Says Hi, and I follow a ketogenic diet. I'm just over month 3 of being on keto. I post weekly updates, grocery hauls, recipes, blood sugar test of keto-friendly foods. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe down below. That way you won't miss out on any of my future updates. So let's get into this. I wrote down some notes here so I could try to keep this video straight to the point and not go off topic. First of all, let me explain what this 200 grams of fat challenge was for. So last Sunday was my week 12 or 3 months of being keto. And when I did my weigh-in, the scale had actually gone up. And in fact, for the last 4 weeks, the scale has been going pretty much up and down, basically equaling out to showing no weight loss in 4 weeks. And then this week, it's 2.4 pounds heavier than my weigh-in last Sunday. Very disappointed because basically for the whole month, it looks like I only lost 0.2 pounds. So I was very frustrated because I had done an egg fast and I had lost a little bit over 2 pounds during the egg fast this month. I've been still at a calorie deficit and I really just hope to see a solid 190 pounds on the scale. And unfortunately, at the day of my weigh-in, I think I was 193. There really wasn't any weight change in 4 weeks. So I wanted to do a change. I wasn't quite ready to drop my calories because I was already having 1,443 calories a day, and I didn't feel like I wanted to drop lower into the 1,200 calorie range, especially for being 3 months in a calorie deficit already. I just felt like I didn't want to go even lower. I follow Stephanie Keto Person on YouTube, and if you're not familiar with her, you should check her out. So Stephanie Person is a 51-year-old woman who's been following a ketogenic diet for 10 years. She has rock solid abs year round. She is very fit. Her face is beautiful and young looking. She's got healthy skin, healthy hair. She looks amazing. So what person wouldn't want to look like that? Even now, you know, I'm 43 years old and Stephanie has me topped. I mean, Stephanie looks like she's like in her early 30s. It's amazing. So I decided, you know what? Why don't I listen to some Stephanie Person advice? So I started binge watching a lot of her videos and wrote down her guidelines. So just a disclaimer that the guidelines that I have written down and that I followed, I don't know if that's 100% of what you would find by purchasing her programs. She does offer some ketogenic programs available on her website, as well as she has like a monthly keto group on Facebook that, you know, there's information there. I got the information from her videos. But if you want to know the exact guidelines that I followed, please click down below. There'll be a link to my website in which I have documented this whole 200 grams of fat eating for 6 days. So I documented every single day. And on day 1 is where I wrote down the guidelines. So there will be a post below for those guidelines if you're curious. Basically, the gist is you're supposed to not count calories and you eat 200 grams of fat, 60 grams of protein, and 15 grams of total carbs, not net carbs. So I decided to implement this plan right away. I started it last Sunday after, you know, watching probably like 15, 20 of her videos or skimming through her live videos. So I wrote down her guidelines and there's a lot of them. It's basically a very strict ketogenic diet, almost to the point where it could be the therapeutic ketogenic diet. And what I mean by therapeutic is for the people that have autoimmune diseases, also for people that have cancer or are fighting Alzheimer's, you know, not as a prevention, but already with a condition in which they need a very low carbohydrate diet and very low protein diet. The number one thing you have to cut out is dairy. I know that she does feel that dairy is okay, but I think for the initial 3 months, she says no dairy. That was the hardest thing because always on keto, I've always had dairy. I've always felt like I haven't had a problem with dairy, except for butter. She does say that butter is okay because butter doesn't have the caseins that cheese does and milks do. I bought and went through a lot of butter. I was still eating about 4 meals a day. Every morning I wasn't really having an actual breakfast. I started off my first day with coffee, which she actually does not want you to have caffeine during this induction phase. Day 1, I was not ready to give up my coffee yet. So I had coffee. I think day 2 is when I started to weed out the coffee and had to come up with substituting coffee for herbal teas. This morning, I'm really trying to kick the coffee habit, not for good, but just during this redoing keto, doing an induction phase. So I got this thing from Tavana a long time ago. This tea is also very old. I've really had this thing like 5 years, I'm sure, but I'm still gonna drink it. Holy 4 tablespoons, oh my God. Because the main thing is you want to get a lot of fat into every meal. So I still had to have some kind of tea in the morning so I could get in a couple tablespoons of butter or coconut oil, MCT oil, something. I had to get the fats in. So every morning I was just having a tea, some kind of tea, which is okay because that's kind of what I do now. I don't typically have breakfast. The fat teas I made were a couple of days I did use my MCT oil powder plus collagen, and I would add cacao butter to it. I would add butter, regular butter to it. Some days when I didn't use the collagen MCT oil powder, I would just use straight MCT oil plus butter or plus the cacao butter and mix it with the herbal tea that I had. And I had loose leaf herbal tea because she's anti tea bags. For lunches, most lunches were very similar to what I take to lunch on a normal ketogenic diet, only way less protein and way more mayonnaise. Okay, so here is the lunch. So in here, this is 1 ounce of chipotle pork rinds. In here, that is 3 ounces of the blackened chicken with a tablespoon of butter, 1 little guacamole packet. This is 2 tablespoons of chipotle mayo in here. The other caveat for the 200 grams of fat a day is that she recommends that of those 200 grams of fat that you're having, 100 grams of fat is coming from plant-based fat such as coconut oil, avocado oil, any kind of nut oil, olive oil, and then the other 100 grams is coming from animal fats. So you could have your butter, you could have ghee, you could have bacon fat, the fat that's found in meats. A lot of my lunches consisted of tuna, and ordinarily I would just maybe put 2 tablespoons of my avocado mayo mixed inside it with my tuna. But for this, because I had to get those 200 grams of fat in, most lunches would have like 3 tablespoons of avocado mayo mixed in with the tuna. Almost every day, I also had a serving of pork rinds. I would have a serving of like a mini guacamole cup. So it was very similar to what I eat normally on a ketogenic diet, but it just felt like a lot less meat. One day I brought leftover sugar-free hot dogs that I had because there's 0 carbs in those beef hot dogs. So I brought those again with just mayonnaise, a couple of tablespoons of mayonnaise to dip it in. Dinners were so boring and so basic. They were usually 4 fried eggs, and I would fry it in a tablespoon of butter. I would top them with a tablespoon of butter. Sometimes I would have, if I didn't have my guacamole cup at lunchtime, I would have it at dinner time with my eggs. My evening snack was always a golden fat tea that I created. The recipe for this will be on my blog down below if you're interested in that. And that was a necessity. that tea and fat bombs were a necessity for me to get my fat grams in, because if I didn't have that tea and I didn't have those fat bombs, I was like short by like 50 grams of fat a day from that 200 gram target. And the fat bombs, oh my gosh, they're amazing. I'm really proud of the recipe, and the recipe for that will be down below too if you're interested, because that's great for a keto diet, not necessarily for someone who's trying to hit 200 grams, but if you are trying to up your fat, definitely try these fat bombs because they're great. I looked forward to that. In fact, that was my favorite meal a day. It wasn't lunch, it wasn't dinner. It was having that golden fat tea along with my fat bombs. I just felt like that was a nice way to end out the evening. I was full, satisfied, and ready for bed. So one of the reasons why Stephanie Person recommends following these guidelines of 200 grams of fat, 60 grams of protein, and 15 grams of total carbs is to reach optimal ketosis. So a normal ketosis range that a lot of us in the keto community have been taught is that once you're 0.5 millimoles of ketones, you're good. You know, anything over that is just butter. It's just, you know, it's the cherry on top. Well, Stephanie Person believes that you're not truly in ketosis unless you're at a minimum of 1.8 millimoles of ketones. She wants you from 1.8 up to 3 millimoles of ketones. And unless you're in that little sweet spot, she doesn't consider you to be ketonic. So that is the reason why she has these guidelines, is to become ketonic. The other guideline that she's looking for is that your blood glucose levels should be reading between 60 to 80 milligrams deciliters. So day 6 of eating her way, I finally hit her target of what she wanted, between 60 to 80 blood glucose. So this is 76. And then my ketones, 3.2. So I have never in my life achieved that high of ketones ever. So I was like, wow, this is amazing, 3.2. Yeah, so this is day 7 and my blood glucose was 81. So still not in that 80 cutoff. And my ketones had dropped to 1.7. Still in high ketosis though. Wednesday was interesting. So Wednesday would have been day 4 of following this. And that was my workout day. So my workout didn't suffer. I felt like I had a lot of energy to get through my workout. I didn't really have a lot of hunger, but the fatigue hit me like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon at work. Oh, I was dragging just to get through my work day. I still had 2 more hours to go. And I was just so exhausted. I'd never felt like that. Like I just wanted more than anything to be home and asleep. So I even got nervous on my drive home. I was afraid I was going to fall asleep at the wheel. As soon as I got home, changed out of my work clothes, crashed on the couch and napped for an hour and a half. When I woke up from my nap, I kind of felt a little headachy. That particular day, I did have a Zip Fizz in the morning for my workout and I didn't finish it all. I had like maybe a third of my bottle left of it. So I'd put it in the fridge. So when I got home from work, I drank the rest of that. It didn't turn into a really bad headache, but I just felt like my head was achy. I didn't get any muscle cramps. So that was one thing that was really good about this. So in 7 days of following Stephanie Keto Person's guidelines, I lost 1.4 pounds. And I actually am surprised by that because I was having anywhere from 2,100 to a little bit over 2,200 calories a day. And of course, you know, that's 80 to 85% of that is fat. One would have been really scared. If you would do the math, I should have gained weight. So I'm eating at a surplus of 660 calories a day. So look at that math. That's 3,960 calories. So according to the calories in versus calories out rule, just this alone, this should equal 1 pound gain. I think it's 3,600 calories is what you need to gain a pound. So yeah, by doing this math, I should have gained a pound, but I lost 1.4 pounds. So overall, on this diet, I was miserable. absolutely miserable, and I'm trying to edit this to make it so that I don't bore you guys with all this information, because I did have daily vlogs on my phone, usually ranting in the car about how miserable I was on this diet. I know I'm in deep ketosis, there's no doubt about it, but why do I feel hungry? And why have I not lost like any weight? Where are the benefits of these ketones? Why is it so important for people to take ketone supplements to boost up their ketones? Because honestly, I don't feel any different when I was measuring 0.5 ketones or 0.8 ketones than today at 3.2. Was it the fact that I took away coffee? Could be. Was it the fact that my protein had dropped significantly? You're looking at, I decreased my protein by probably 40, 50 grams. Even some people that weigh less than me, they would be required to have more protein on a ketogenic diet than I was eating on this. I was miserable. I would sit down and look at my pathetic little dinner and be like, I just want some more meat. I don't care about this fat. I just want more meat, and I couldn't have it. Immediately eating those meals, whatever they were, if it was lunch or if it was dinner, I was hungry. I felt like I was starving. It didn't matter that there was 3 to 4 tablespoons of fat represented in that meal. I wasn't satisfied. I was hungry. Now, I wasn't craving junk food. I wasn't craving carbs at all. I wanted more meat. And let me just touch on the coffee subject. Why Stephanie Person doesn't like coffee. She's telling you not to have it during the first 3 months of keto, your induction phase, is because caffeine is known to cause a cortisol increase. But I did further research this morning, looked at some more articles and stuff. Of course, Dave Asprey is hardcore for drinking his bulletproof coffee, and of course it's kind of going to be biased to support, his coffee. When I looked at his article, he didn't really touch too heavily on the cortisol responses, but he did acknowledge that in some people, caffeine can induce a cortisol response, an increase in cortisol. But he also backs it up with further research articles that point it to the fact that if your body is not adapted to drinking coffee, if you're drinking it regularly, your body has adapted to the caffeine response, and you won't have a cortisol spike necessarily. I also found further research, and I will post a comment for this article down below. It was by Forbes magazine, actually. There was an article on there in which they stated that cortisol seems to be most active, and there's a rise in cortisol between the hours of 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. So they're actually saying in that article, if you drink coffee after, don't have coffee as like a morning cup of coffee to wake you up, but if you have it later in the day, then you're least likely to have cortisol rise due to the caffeine. Okay, so we have coffee. The other thing was dairy, cutting out dairy. I don't know if that was just, you're already giving up carbs, and to take away the one other thing that I really enjoy. I'm a cheese foodie. I will buy gourmet cheeses. I just really enjoy cheese. I love having heavy whipping cream in my coffee. So taking cheese away, that also made it really hard. And then just the low protein. That was the biggest downfall of this diet, was I felt deprived. From what I have read, I've done further research today. The reason why I decided to stop this, because I was debating whether or not I was going to continue this for another week or two. Number one, you don't need optimum ketones. You don't need 1.7, 3.2 millimoles of ketones to be in ketosis. That even hitting the low spectrum of ketones is enough to be in ketosis, is enough to utilize ketones for fuel. So it's not necessary to hit those targets. I don't want to stress myself out eating this way to hit those levels. There's no superiority for hitting those high ketones. So it's really true when you watch these videos or read these articles on stop chasing ketones. It's true. You don't really need to be chasing those high levels as long as you're in ketosis. And weight loss, fat loss can happen whether you're in ketosis or not. But obviously following a ketogenic diet, that is the goal, is to be in ketosis. I felt no energy. I did not get the energy. It never came. I would say that my energy kind of felt normal, the same as it does following a regular ketogenic diet, with an exception to the day that I was really, really exhausted. Just eating this way actually is putting more stress on my body because I'm miserable. I am absolutely miserable eating this way, and that's why I decided to quit it. Basically, overall, I feel like this whole week of doing the 200 grams of fat and 60 grams of protein was a diet break. And it's very important when you follow any diet. In most diet plans, when you've had a strict calorie deficit for 6 to 8 weeks, it is recommended that you just take either 3 days off or a week off, not off, but you bump up your calories. And Keto Gains actually recommends bumping up your calories and bumping up the fat intake. So basically, that's what I view this week as. So losing 1.4 pounds in 1 week of doing this, not bad. If you read the article I'm gonna post below, it's definitely like the best article I've read on it that kind of squashes that thinking that if you eat too much protein that you're going to produce glucose and it's going to stall your weight loss. So I highly recommend reading that article if you want. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like it. It really helps me out so that other people can find this channel and support me. And we'll see you in the next one.